Hey, guess what? I'm filming this on July 1st. Happy fiscal new year, everybody. Happy pastoral new year. A lot of times we kind of look at the cycle of activity in the church almost from July 1 to June 30th. So God help us all. Happy New Year. Guess what? It's also inside of 6 months until Christmas. And Christmas was on my mind this week because the reading we hear from the prophet Zechariah is often something we hear during Advent, proclaiming the coming of the King. One who speaks of peace, one who, comes riding on an ass, a donkey, the foal of an ass, as it's said. And kind of fulfilled in the travels of Joseph and Mary and the infant in her womb, Jesus. Here he comes. But so much of that reading, proclaims the peace that he brings. The laying down of the warrior's bow. And in some ways, just the consolation that his presence and action in our lives brings to us. So, you fast forward to the gospel reading, and they're just so intimately connected, where Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who labor and are burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon your shoulders and learn from me, for my yoke is easy and my burden light." Something like that. I might have left out a couple of words, but I pray that gospel every time I give someone the anointing of the sick, and I will usually tell them, at least partially the same thing, that I think we genuinely begin to experience the rest that Jesus promises to us when we imagine that he is calling out to us specifically in our burdens. He sees the toil under which you labor. He sees the pain, he sees the sorrow, he sees all of it. And he calls you by name and invites you specifically to come find your rest in him. And knowing that he sees, knowing that he cares, knowing that he invites, is itself the beginnings of rest. But, I think he specifically, he's specifically in so many ways. We labor in so many ways, but, perhaps most profoundly, our salvation is found specifically or seen specifically in the forgiveness of sins. And here he invites, those who labor under the pain of their sorrow and shame and guilt, and have not yet experienced the mercy of Jesus, to come find rest in his forgiveness. Come find rest in his promise of restoration and glory with him in heaven. I don't know that there is any greater rest, any greater habilitation of our hearts than the promise of glory for one who has been mired in sin and shame. So, of all the ways that you labor, of all the ways that you find yourself in sorrow and toil, we all need to imagine the personal invitation that Jesus extends to each and every one of us. That he sees us in our pain, he sees us in our toil, our labors, and he invites us specifically to come to him, even here and now, to find our rest.